Okay, I'm back. We were talking about sense experience as part of the content of our experience, and that I want to apply the word soul to that content. And of course, again, we have the way that we relate to it in language. We say, I see, I hear, I smell, I taste, uh, I touch, and those experiences we unite with uh, our sort of our orientation as the experiencer. We don't normally make this subtle distinction between the experience and the experiencer, but I think it's fairly easy to perceive and important on a certain level to perceive this and to on occasion be troubled by what it means when we don't make the distinction between our I and our spirit and our experience. Certain things that we maybe wouldn't like can happen, and so if you'll just look around your room or notice that maybe you're sitting in a chair and you can move the attention of your spirit or the attention element of your mind, what you attend to the what you feel like because you're sitting. You know, the gravity pulls your body, and the lower extremities of your body feel a certain thing. And maybe there's a noise in the background. Maybe something distracts you for a minute. Some other part of the house, some other individual yells at some individual, and for a moment your attention is drawn away from watching this video or from the thoughts you're having while watching your video. And if you observe for a while, you'll notice that your attention dances around from one type of experience to another. Now, the attention is part, again, of your spirit, your I. Your I is the part that's attending to something. And what it attends to, what it perceives, what's the content, that takes place in the soul. Now, in conventional wisdom, influenced by the science of quantities that has only looked at quantities, the picture we can have is, well, there's this process, there's this sound wave that enters into my eardrum, and then from my eardrum it gets transferred through neural pathways into my brain, and then my brain interprets it according to its particular and interesting powers, which when you get into the study of brain studies and consciousness, at the boundary line where that interpretation becomes what we experience, it gets kind of fuzzy because they don't really know how to make that connection work between the material and the spiritual. At that boundary, natural science, having assumed that there's only matter, gets kind of stuck because consciousness is not matter. Consciousness is soul. And so we're sticking that back in. But in any event, we also have the same idea about sight. We've been taught to think, well, light rays enter the eye and they get turned upside down by the mirroring image of the focus of the eye, and then the brain gets this information from the way the light interacts with the rods and cones in the back of the eye, and then it interprets this, and we get this picture of da-da-da-da-da. And you might remember at a point where I said, what about the fact that I feel awe when I look at the stars? Yeah, see, those qualitative aspects of the experience, the fact that we can look at something and go, ooh, this makes me want to throw chunks. Or we can look at something and say, wow, that's delicious. I would really like to eat that. All those processes that go on that are very normal. There's a whole lot of the world that comes to us through the senses. And in fact, you might say a hallmark of this particular age in which we live, this age in which the day after purification is manifesting, in which the Hopi prophecy is coming true, is an age in which the interior life, the spiritual life of the human being, the soul and spiritual elements which we're trying to introduce, the fact that we have experiences, and the experiences are experienced, and the meaning is attached to them by our own interior activity. Um, but we do live in a world in which human beings are by and large dominated by what goes on in front of their senses. There wouldn't be any interest in television and video games and movies and all the rest of that if we weren't dominated by our senses. And in fact, when you go to the megaplex to watch Avatar or something like that, you're encountering a great feat of technology, which wants to deliver its message through this domination of the senses. And of course, in films, mostly this is sound and visual media. There was a guy that went around trying to introduce smells into the movie-going experience. That didn't work very well, but wait till they find a technology for doing it. And already, in certain IMAX theaters, another place where the seats are vibrated and other things happen, the tactile experience is also approached by the film experience. And of course, if you're into science fiction and read some of that, people think basically they're going to be able to build an interface, which of course is what is the science fiction idea that underlies an aspect of the film Avatar. They're going to build an interface using computers and somehow link our consciousness to other kinds of things and make, virtual reality, for example. That's not quite as in the forefront of computer thinking today as it has been, but people believe that they can create virtual reality. They can create an experience for your consciousness that's generated by computers. And there's all kinds of interesting ideas out there that we sort of relate to because we're dominated by our sense experience, and we think, in fact, a lot of people think that our minds are like computers and all of that stuff, and I'm not saying that thinking is wrong, although a lot of thinking that's like that is maybe not very careful. When you make, when you practice your science or your art of thinking about various kinds of things, and you're not careful in how you think, you can wander into territory that maybe you don't want to wander in. And at various times in these dialogues, we'll get to that. But at this point, I just simply wanted to expand on the idea of soul and the experience that we have, and say that that's soul, so that when I see something, even though my orientation from my culture is that I'm seeing something outside of me, I'm seeing something that isn't part of me, I'm still having an experience. And that element is the totality of what's going on, not just the fact that there's an outer, but there's an inner that is having an experience. That having of the experience is soul. Or shall we say, we're going to put that name to it. We're going to make a distinction between the outer, the stimulus for the experience, and the inner, which is the experience as perceived by the I, or the spirit, and we're going to call that aspect soul. So we're about done here, and more later.